Welcome to another bookish video. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel. Today, we will be discussing my worst reads of 2020. I have read a total of 48 books. You can see all the statistics up above. I have also done a video on my best reads of 2020, which you guys can check out. This one's going to be the 10 worst reads. Somehow, it was a lot easier for me to make this list than it was my best reads because this wasn't a really good reading year. Like, my rereads were fantastic. I enjoyed all my rereads, but all the new to me books I had some trouble with. So we will discuss them right away. Like I said, I have 10, and we will be making our way from 2.75 stars all the way down to 1, so 10 to 1. So to get started at spot number 10, I have a single book right in the middle of a 14-volume long manga, and that is Tokyo Ghoul Volume 9 by Sui Ishida. Before I go on, please note that I really enjoyed the rest of the series. The rest of the series I gave about between 4.5 all the way to 5 stars. If you watch the best books video, you'll see that as a whole it made it to that list. I think it was in like 3rd or 2nd place. So I'm singling out this volume just because I got this one in particular really bored me to tears. This was mostly about the CCG. Also, maybe I should talk about what Tokyo Ghoul is about. First of all, what the manga series is about this boy named Ken Kaneki who goes on a date. All he wanted to do was go on that date, but then he gets bitten by a ghoul. Ghouls are running amok in Tokyo. They eat humans. That's why people are scared of them. There's been an accident. He was involved in said accident. He has an organ transplant, except it's hers. So now he is half demon. I'm thinking of the wrong one. Now he is half ghoul and half human. CCG is the police force, so to speak, that hunts these ghouls. Every time they had a part in these mangas, I was bored. They really bore me, and that was the majority of this manga. It was a lot about the CCG, and I didn't care. Unfortunately, it's all important information, so I should care, but I'd rather read about Toka and Kaneki and Hanami and Hide and Yoshimura. I'd rather read about them. Aman, he's hot, but I didn't really care for him. I do like Akira, but that's about it. Everyone else I didn't care about in the CCG. Coming in at number 9, we have Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is just her poetry collection. I think this is her first collection. She started out as an Instagram poet. I read this after The Princess Saves Herself in this one, which you will, spoiler alert, you will see on this list, but I will get there. Except I did like this better, and the reason I liked it better is because Rupi Kaur had some longer poems that would take up pages, and her longer poems were a lot stronger than her shorter ones, and quite frankly I enjoyed the longer poems. Except the majority of this collection was her short Instagram poetry, and boy am I not a fan. These small poems were just single lines that would work a lot better and like a whole thing of prose. Some of them I do have mixed emotions about because some of them had beautiful figurative language, the metaphors were there, but then the ones that were just straightforward, it's like, how is this poetry? I didn't understand. If anything, they just reminded me of things I saw on posters, on those motivational posters you see all over elementary schools. That's what they reminded me of. And actually, going back to the figurative language, some of it did fall flat in a way I can't really describe, but it was awkward because I knew what she was going for, but I still hated it. Honestly. As a whole, I think this collection also just confuses me because there were parts that I related to. She had a whole part about how her ex-boyfriend broke up with her, but given the opportunity, she would run back to him. That hits close to home. Can relate. And again, some of those poems were longer, which is probably why I liked them better, not just these simple sentences that we can use in everyday conversation. But then other sections, I was like, why? And I think it was part 4, where it's supposed to be motivational poems toward woman power. But it was shit I've seen before. People who write poetry like this always kind of say the same things over and over again. Like, she has a poem about how, women shouldn't need to shave their legs to feel special. And I've seen people write that poem over and over again. I'm not accusing anyone of plagiarism, because it's not. The point is that they all write this shit, and I want something new. But yeah, in summary, longer poems better, the shorter poems, not a fan. And it was just stuff I've seen before, and there's better poetry books out there, honestly. Number 8, we have Basil of Baker Street by Eve Titus. This is about a mouse detective who is Sherlock Holmes' biggest fan. He lives in Sherlock Holmes' basement. I read this book because it's one of my goals in life to read every book that was turned into a Disney movie. This was turned into The Great Mouse Detective. I think it came out in the 80s. I've actually never seen it. But I read this for the readathon. Wow, that's generic. I read this for the reading rush. Yeah, I gave it 2.75 out of 5 stars because I'm well aware this is a children's book. It's just everything. So the plot line is that he has to find these twin mice that went missing, right? I'm aware it's a children's book, but everything came super easy to Basil. Yeah, everything just came way too easy for him. And I'm well aware this is a children's book, but like I remember reading children's books where things didn't come easy. Y'all remember A to Z Mysteries? I loved those books back in 2nd and 3rd grade. Things didn't come easy for them, and it made it a lot more exciting. And I think the other thing is this book definitely told more than it showed. I wasn't shown that Basil was happy. We were told he is a happy mouse. And it's like, hey, great, thanks. And just the ending was kind of off. I wasn't a fan of the ending. What I did like, though, if I have to say something positive about it, what I did like was the vibe of it. I felt like I was watching an old, like, 30s black and white movie. You know, the mystery ones with the spooky narrator. I can vibe with that, but it needs to be better written for me to actually enjoy the book. Woo! So next at number 7, we have The Raw Shark text by Stephen Hall, one of the two. But I remember it being recommended for readers who liked House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. And it is the same concept with the creative words, the shapes and shit. Let me read the summary. Alright, so a dude named Eric Sanderson wakes up one day and he has no idea who he is. He has to see Dr. Randall, and there's letters from his past self that he's been told not to read, but he reads them anyway. Shit ensues. There's some shark after him, but it's like, it's not a real shark, it's a word shark, which I know sounds weird. I read this for the Sherlockathon that I co-hosted with Opal at Opalescent and Olivia Savannah, Olivia's Catastrophe, and I'll link their channels down below. I talk about this book in a vlog. A lot of these books I actually talk about in a vlog, and I'll link that vlog up above. It's my quarantine vlog when, you know, all this shit just started. To make this quick, just because I have, like, no memory of it and I only wrote, like, a paragraph about it on Goodreads, I remember the beginning being promising, and I was really enjoying it. I was really kicking through. But then you find out the plot twist 30% into the book, like the plot twist that the synopsis is asking you to guess. So the last 70%, I felt like I was slugging through, and to put it bluntly, it was just boring. There's no other way to say it. And then by the end of it, I was really confused. I had more questions than answers, which I don't even know if that was the point, because you know some novels you can, like, the point is to have more questions than answers. This one I'm not sure, just because, what was the shark called? The shark was called a Ludovician, and it was described to us, but because I was just so confused, I'm guessing I was not supposed to have more questions than answers, but I'm still confused on what this shark is. I'm confused on what exactly happened in the end. And it was such a good idea, just poorly executed, and that's all I gotta say about that. Next we have The Thornbirds by Kali Makula, which is also a 2.75 star read. This will be the last one at 2.75 stars. So this is about a family, the Cleary family. They were Irish Kiwi, Irish New Zealand. And then one day they moved to Australia, which is where the rest of the book takes place. And that's it. It's the life of the Clearys, basically. That's the plot. It takes place from the early 1900s till I want to say it was the late 50s, early 60s, I believe. So I have two good things to say about this book. One, the writing is good. It's good writing. It's not bad. And I was actually shocked how well the time jumps worked when I saw, like, because the book, the mass market paperback, it was 600 pages. So I was a little worried how the time skipping was going to work, but it flowed really nicely, so I have nothing to complain about that. But in the end, I've said multiple times on this channel, this is not a book I would pick up on my own. I only did it because it's my cousin's favorite book and she wanted me to read it. And in the end, I didn't like it. The first half of this book is unbearably boring. I didn't care about anyone, but then Maggie had kids, and they were the only two characters I liked. Her daughter Justine was by far the most interesting character in this whole novel. And the thing with Justine, I feel like in any other book, as a young girl, because we watched her grow up as well, as a young girl in any other book, I would not like Justine, I would be annoyed by her, but because everyone in this book was so goddamn bland, she was a breath of fresh air. And then as an adult, actually, like, she was annoying as a kid, but as an adult, she was an empowering young woman. She knew what she was doing, and you know what? I have to stand. And then the book just got boring again, honestly. Maggie was actually more interesting to read as an adult. She was more bearable. But then at the end, I felt like super iffy about her. And the other main character is arguably this priest. I can't even remember his name. It was Rolf something. This man was a piece of shit. I hated him so much. He was so fucking dumb too. Like there's one plot point in the book. I spoil it in other videos, so if you feel the need to do that, just stalk my channel. But like there's just one point in the book where everyone could figure, so Maggie had a secret. She kept it to herself. Everyone could figure it out but this guy. And I'm like, how is it not obvious to you? Because he's built up to be this smart, intellectual man. And it's like, are you fucking sure? And he's super wishy-washy. The romance, the main romance of this book. I really don't like the trope where like, it's like this grown man taking care of a little girl, and then when the little girl is now an adult, they fall in love. That's in this book. I hate that trope. It's creepy to me. It seems like, what do you call it? It seems like, grooming, honestly. And the priest did say some things where I was like, that's a little fucking weird. I know this was the time. Still doesn't make it okay. There's a reason we as a society grew away from that. Honestly, I will say the last 3 chapters of this novel had my attention, but then the last 10 pages happened, and I was very disappointed in that, as books tend to do, as 2020 tended to do to me, always disappoint me every which way. And that's really all I gotta say about this. If you've been on this channel for a while, it should not come as a shock to you that this is on this list. It was fun though, because my mom watched the TV show, so it was fun, like, discussing things with her. So we bonded over a book I didn't like, but so it goes. So coming in at number 5 is a graphic novel, Goliath by Tom Gauld. This is essentially a David and Goliath retelling, but in Goliath's point of view. This is one of those books where as I was reading it, I was enjoying it, and you could see this in the same vlog as well. But then once I put it down, like once I finished it and put it down and thought about it, I was like, wow, I don't think I really like that. My main gripe with this is that nothing happens. Until the end, obviously, if you know the Bible story, you know how it ends. But throughout the whole thing, he was kind of just sitting there, just sitting around. So it was a lot of panels of him just minding his own fucking business. There wasn't any speech bubbles. There was a 9-year-old boy in it who was pretty cute, but then that was like the only saving grace. Like, I'm not gonna unhaul this as much as I didn't like it, because I do like the art style, so it is fun to like flip through it and look at it, but I just wish more happened. You know? So number 4 is another book that's like way into a series. It's way into the Miss Peregrine series. It's book 5, and that will be The Conference of the Birds by Ransom Riggs. I cannot believe I read this book this year. I read this during Owls, I think this was one of my Owls books. And again, it's in that vlog that was linked up above. It's hard to talk about this book since it's the 5th in the series. The Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series was originally a trilogy, and it's about this boy who goes through a loop. And he goes into this universe where only peculiars live, and peculiars have these special abilities. Like his friend Emma his friend Emma's a firebender, essentially. His friend Olive floats. One of his friends is invisible. And like I said, it was supposed to be a trilogy. And then one day Ransom Riggs came out with the 4th book, and everyone's like, what the fuck? The 4th book was great. And then I read this one, and according to Goodreads, I gave it 2.75 stars, but like just thinking about it now, I dropped it down to 2.5. I had a lot of gripes with it. It was so promising in the beginning because it picked up where book 4 left off. But then just halfway through it, this plot was a fucking mess. It did not go in the direction book 4 was planning on. Kind of minor spoiler, but book 4 ends in a way where you think this book would just be Jacob and Nora together, which is what I think it should have been. But that's not the case. Book 4 might as well have been disregarded, honestly. There were kind of 2 different storylines going on. Like, there was the main one with Jacob and his friends. What were they even doing? I don't even remember what the plot was. Okay, so one is that Nora's being hunted because of her peculiarity. I can't even say that word. And then another one was trying to find this V person. In the end, both plots come together, but it was just so poorly executed. And the thing this book does is when an original series / trilogy, they resolve an issue, but then the new series brings up the issue, and it's like, oh, it was planned the whole time. I was so upset when that was revealed, because it's a waste of time. I've mentioned this before with this author, and I think it was when I was reviewing A Map of Days, which is the 4th book. But I firmly believe Ransom Riggs introduced way too many characters in the original trilogy, and as the story goes on, he he doesn't know what to do with them because it's too many characters for these simple adventures. He'll have them stay behind for whatever reason. They have an excuse, so then you hardly see that character in the story. It just reads like he firmly doesn't know what to do with them, so he's trying to throw them away and give them an excuse to not be there. Is that making sense at all? Like, characters just become flat. And it sucks because there's one character so Jacob's love interest, so to speak. Him and his love interest break up in book 4, right? Minor spoiler, but I'm not going to say who it is. So now that they're broken up, this love interest is just on the back burner. Never talked about anymore when they were like a huge character in the first 3 books. And it's just, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing to these poor characters? So one spoiler I can kind of say non-spoilery is the minor plot of book 4 where someone's after Noor, thrown away pretty quickly. It got solved way too easily, and I'm still questioning why Ransom Riggs made such a big deal about it if it really wasn't a big deal. It's like, did you introduce a concept and had no idea what to do with it, so you found the easy way out? I don't know, maybe. The other thing was that there was a stupid ass prophecy in this, and there's supposed to be like this ingredients, and it was supposed to be complicated, but the enemies figured it out way too easily, so I was like, what do you mean it's complicated? What do you mean the character that made it is intelligent? Are you sure? I'm not sure. I have a lot of complaints about the ending in this. I do spoil it in my Goodreads review, but it was just, it took so many weird turns, and there was supposed to be like a plot twist that wasn't a plot twist to me because I figured it out right away, and therefore I was like, Jacob and Nora, y'all are fucking stupid. The climax was anticlimactic, and it's like, why? Why did you even bother writing the sequel trilogy, you know? And it's like, I'm this far, and I liked the other 4 books, so I just can't stop reading. Like, I want to read the 6th one. This book was just a sloppy shit show. I should have seen this coming because Map of Days is like a brick. It's like this big, and here's this tiny ass book. Still holding out for book 6. I can't end it here with 1 book left, you know? So coming in at number 3 is Life of Pi by Jan Martel. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. I read this over the summer. This is about a guy who gets shipwrecked. He's lost at sea with nothing but a lifeboat and a tiger. I actually liked the beginning of this book. I thought the beginning was promising. It was just about his life because, I don't even remember the main character's name. Pi. I'm dumb. Okay. Pi, you find out as an adult he majored in religious studies and zoology, and you get to see that as a kid. He was very animal focused because his family ran a zoo. He loved religion. He thought it was fascinating. He practiced Hinduism, Christianity, and Islam all at once because he loved it all. And in the beginning, he talks about zoos, he talks about animals, how to raise animals, what it's like, the controversies of zoos. He talks about the 3 different religions, and it read like an essay, but I was still vastly intrigued. I loved learning about Islam and Hinduism. Christianity too, but like I grew up Christian, so it was old news to me. Quite frankly, the section about the zoo I felt very validating because I majored in zoology, and a lot of the stuff he talked about was stuff I learned in classes, because yeah, there's the big debate about whether zoos are ethical or not, and I'm not going to say my answer for that because 1, I could see an argument breaking out in the comments. 2 is because I could rant about my opinion for hours. So this book made me feel very, very validated. Thank you, Pi. So I was looking forward to the main plot happening. It was fine at first, very, very sad when the ship went down, obviously, but then it was so early in the book, and then the rest of the book just fucking dragged. It was boring to read. I don't like DNFing books, but I remember dreading picking up this book because of how boring it was, and I didn't care, almost. The thing is, it's supposed to be slow. If you're shipwrecked for 227 days, life in the middle of the ocean, I cannot imagine time is gonna go by fast, especially when you're doing the same thing over and over again. So the slow pace made sense. It still just wasn't fun to read. And the symbolism wasn't lost on me. Like, all the animals were supposed to represent someone in his family, and obviously. And then there's that whole speech he gives to the police at the end. None of it was lost on me. It still doesn't take away from the fact it was boring, and I didn't like reading this book. Number 2 on this list, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars, is The Chemist by Stephanie Meyer. Now, this was the second book I read in the year 2020. It seems like I read this 5 years ago, so bear with me. All I know is that I stayed up until 4 in the morning just to give it 2 stars, because I'm fucking crazy. But it's basically about an ex-agent who's going undercover because she knows too much when it comes to chemistry. she comes across this dude whose brother is trying to kill her, but then now the three of them are fugitives and blah blah blah. It's a shit show, right? First of all, I was not expecting a romance, which is totally my fault because it's Stephenie Meyer, so I don't know why I wasn't expecting a romance, but it's when you read the synopsis, it's not what you expect. And it's insta-love. Like, the dude fell in love with her within minutes, despite the fact she was trying to kill him 2 minutes ago. Even Twilight wasn't insta-love. I know, like, that's one of its main critiques, that it was, but, like, I would argue it's not, because I would argue it's insta-fascination, but Bella and Edward definitely, you know, were friends first, and then they realized they were madly in love with each other. But this is not Twilight, so moving on. Something I noticed in Stephenie Meyer's writing, this book, I saw it in The Host from what I remember. During my Twilight reread, I saw this a lot. Once she finds a word she likes, she uses it a lot. There's a lot of sighing in this book, and I can never say this word right if I'm not reading it. She used incapacitated to describe something so many times. I'm shocked I didn't keep a word count because I got sick of reading it. And honestly, the biggest gripe, just like with the other books, it was boring. So boring. A lot of it was just the main character describing her surroundings that I glossed over because a lot of it wasn't really important. The lovey-dovey stuff with I think her name was Alex, with the main character and the what's his name? Daniel. Read as filler. There was one part of the book, from page 200 to page 250, it was action-packed, and I was excited because I was like, okay, now it's finally picking up. Like, Stephenie Meyer was using the first 200 pages as background setup, and then after that 50-page mark, it went back to being boring. Bored to tears. Again, I don't like DNFing, so I found myself looking forward to the end, not because, you know, I wanted to know the end, it was a page-turner like it's described, but it's because I wanted the book to fucking end because I was so tired of it. It's 2 out of 5 stars because, you know, I read it cover to cover, but also because I think, you know, when there's an author who's so famous for something like Meyer is, she is so famous for Twilight, I think it's inevitable that people are going to compare future works to the series they're famous for. And I have to give her props because this does not read like it's from the author of Twilight. She did a very good job at separating herself. But not only that, but her writing has improved so much over the years. Like, if you were to tell me, if I were to read Twilight and then this book not knowing who wrote it, I would not say they were by the same author. So I give her props for that. Just wish it had more action and it picked up a bit, but whatever. The last book, there's a fucking list, so I really need to get my review out if I really want to talk about it. The last book jumps between 1 star and 1.5 stars all the time, but it's the worst book I read of 2020. It's number 1 on the list, and it's The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. I really did not like this book. So to cut to the chase, it's kind of similar to Rupi Kaur's short poetry, except, unlike Rupi Kaur, who had the longer poems, this collection was just straight up Instagram poetry. None of it read like poetry to me, maybe with the exception of 2 poems. It just read like simple lines you can find in those motivational posters back in elementary and middle school. Or like stuff I'd find on Twitter, like the cringy side of Twitter where, you know, teenagers think they're being woke, or r/deep, or whatever that's what's it called? I think it's called r/I'm 14 and this is deep. That's where I would find this poetry. Like, some of these poems were only a single line that I couldn't believe were considered poems. For example, one of the poems was just, I could eat you up. Each word on a separate line, so I guess that's what made it a poem, but I'm like, that's a poem? One of the poems was literally just, I hate you. Please tell me how that's poetry, because I don't know. Granted, she makes an argument in the book that poetry is anything you want it to be, but I don't see how the line, I hate you, by itself is considered a poem. I'm sorry. Going back to the motivational poster thing, like, most of these poems were just cliches. She had a section about loving her boyfriend turned husband, and it wasn't anything I haven't seen before. I've seen it a lot in this Instagram poetry thing. I've seen it in romance books, you know, as part of their prose. The you section, because she also, like Rupi Kaur, she divided her collection into 4 parts. The you section was where the motivational poster shit was the worst. It was just cliched line after cliched line that I heard before, not only on these posters, but teachers would tell me back in like 3rd grade when she was going for like figurative language. It always fell flat, so I think that's what made it even worse. And I understand this section was supposed to empower us, you know, because of women power. You don't need to shave your legs, because she also had a poem about not having to shave your legs. You don't need to shave your armpits. Hair is just hair. It's just the way she wrote it, I didn't feel empowered. I felt like I was being talked down to. It's like, who was this for? because I feel like you're dumbing yourself down to talk to me. You could argue this book is not for me as a 23-year-old woman. You could argue that it's for young teenagers. But the thing is, I was reading other reviews who are also confused about this. None of us really know who the target audience is. Because when it first came out, I remember it being advertised for, you know, college women like 18 to 21. But like, this is stuff I would have liked back in 7th grade. So who is this for? Who are you empowering? Then the other thing, like, it's written for preteens, but she talks about women a lot. Like, a preteen is obviously not a woman. You are a child if you are 12 years old. So it's like, why are you writing in the style of preteens, but for women? Like, why are you talking down to us? Like, so if anything, the poetry didn't make me feel better about myself. It made me feel stupid. Like, you ever had those moments at work where, like, you ever had that one bad manager who would just talk to you in a way where if it's like, my dude, if I wanted someone to talk to me like I was 10 years old, I would have stayed in the 5th grade. That's what it felt like. It's a series, and I will not be continuing it if this is the style of it, because it's just not, it's not poetry to me. These should have stayed on Twitter, on Instagram, on Tumblr for the 14-year-olds to read. And that is it for this video. These were the worst books I read in 2020. It was a wild year. I pray to God that 2021 is a better reading year for me. I have books picked out and I'm very excited to get to them. Let's just hope they don't suck, because 2020 I didn't really plan it. I just kind of went by ear, and I'm learning that was not the smart way to go. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like, subscribe, comment, y'all know the drill. And without further ado, I'm gonna peace out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao tutti.